Daniel Day-Lewis has won his 3rd Academy Award for his performance as Abraham Lincoln in the Steven Spielberg film Lincoln. This is Lewis's 5th nomination. And welcome to Boob Tube Boys. I'm Brian Vaughn. That there, over there, across yonder, is Van Lee.
He also did win that Oscar for portraying Brian, the youngest boy in this show. He was quite good at it.
Really great. He even shrunk himself.
What would your acceptance speech be if you were to be introduced to
Am I
Oscar
Daniel
ceremony?
Day-Lewis as Lincoln?
Yes, in that voice.
Sure.
Because I think we need to let Brian do that one. That's his favorite voice to do.
That's true. First, that other voice is Spencer Hendricks.
Yeah.
And this voice is Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln. Oh, I seem to have lost my favorite sock. Oh, has anyone seen it? I basically sound like a version of Mr. Burns.
Listen, Mary Todd, we're going to have a fine dinner this evening.
7 years ago, I've run out of breath. Let me start over again.
There's no country for old presidents.
But no, Abraham Lincoln's dead in 1873.
Sure.
Oh, no.
Which is
no.
I know.
He
Spoiler
sure was.
alert. Which is the year that this episode, season 6, episode either 18 or
They
19.
probably just needed a good doctor. They could have fixed him right up, I would
That's
assume.
true.
He probably didn't know Dr.
Perhaps
Quinn.
Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, the show we're covering. This episode is titled Birdman. Before we get into talking about the episode, do either of you know? This is one of those, sometimes titles have nothing to do with the subject matter. Could you guys parse why this episode of Dr. Quinn was called Birdman?
This is like when you see an episode of a show called Ozymandias.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, that's obviously what Latin or whatever it may be. It's
It's a literary reference.
you don't
so I
quite
figured this
know
out.
what it is, but you're like, this sounds important. And I think that's what this is. And really, it's our job as Boob Tube Boys to get to the bottom of it. Spencer, what do you think?
What are you are you referring to the part where there's a guy who just immediately jumps out of nowhere with feathers on his back and screaming at the characters?
I must have been in the bathroom.
Weird.
What are
I
you
missed
talking
that. I missed
about?
that little bit. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see what happens here from you
that's-
guys' perspective.
Well,
Clearly, that's only in just that brief moment. We're not going to see anything
and the
as
rest of the
wild as
episode,
that.
something else entirely.
No talk about birds. We'll let you, the audience, see if you can figure out why this episode.
Hey, what's
is
your
called
last name,
Birdman.
Brian? Is it Avis Hominis?
No, that's my whole name. This episode of Dr. Quinn has a few different people in it. For instance, the town now has a sheriff, Daniel Simon. He's played by a guy named John Schneider.
And-
Not related to Rob Schneider, I don't think.
Oh, good. And in the meantime, by the way, since season 2 to this one, the oldest boy, and I'm blanking on his name,
Matthew. Yeah.
became the sheriff for the town.
Apparently, like, in seasons between 2 and 6.
Yes, and
Yeah, it
he
felt like
he
a lot
left the
happened in
role.
4 years.
And that's knowledge you need later in this episode,
Yes.
actually. It's presented to us in one of the storylines that comes up.
So instead, we get this handsome devil as the sheriff.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Simon. And he's been friends with another handsome devil, Byron Sully, since childhood. The two of them even had a little mining job in Nevada, and it was very successful. The reason that Daniel Simon actually comes to Colorado Springs, by the way, is because little baby cowboy Brian reached out to Daniel Simon and said, we are having financial trouble. So Daniel Simon made it his way to Colorado to help out the family. Because at this point, Sully's in the family, and he's best friends with Sully.
Well, and they're married. They, Dr. Quinn and Sully.
Yeah.
They have a baby, which is, I'm going to get out in front. This is in my notes later. We see the baby. Largest baby I've ever seen.
It's
in
a
my
real
life.
big baby. And also, did you know that Jane Seymour was actually pregnant? This was we wrote it into the show pregnancy.
Oh, it was? Okay.
So that's cool. I
Yeah.
like that because that too often, especially in the past, if a woman was pregnant, they're like, get off the screen.
Yeah, it's like famously in Seinfeld there, David was like, we'll just make Elaine fat. That's what we'll do.
Right.
And it like made her cry. It's like,
Of course.
they never know what to do. Like, let's kill her off. Like, she can't be in the show anymore.
We'll bring her
On
back as a
Seinfeld.
ghost after she gives birth.
Well, and The Office did this as well with Angela Kinsey,
Yes.
who played Angela. And what they did then for the whole time, Dinner Party, I know, in fact, is an episode where this is the case.
Yes.
They always had just something in front of her. And so that way you
Yeah.
couldn't quite tell. Although, look, terrible things happen to a human body when they get pregnant. And her face just went way out to the side.
Well, the other thing is like all these changes are natural, and
Yes.
like most women have children at some point, so it's identifiable.
Mhm.
Put the character
why
on the screen.
are Hollywood executives so afraid
Fucking
of it?
crazy.
It's not like anybody was like, oh, Angela's the sex symbol for this show. She was a good-looking woman, but like that's not her role.
No, they
So,
hid that as much as they
yeah.
could with her. Also, that's one of the things, like one of the scenes that I really loved about Knocked Up is how they talk to, what is it, Katherine Heigl, or whatever her character is, when they say, and it's Kristen Wiig who delivers that line. She's like, I just think it's so disgusting when I see a pregnant woman. You know, like,
Yeah.
because they're talking about how
Kristen
they're going
Wiig
to handle
is
it on air or whatever, and they really nail it in that sense. Like, she's just like, am I going to be able to keep my job? And they're like, you're going to keep it. But then Kristen Wiig delivers all those horrible lines. Or like, I just don't like it. I just think basically that it's a problem and it's inconvenient for us, but we're going to make it work for you. But she makes sure to let her know. I think it's weird and gross. So that's something that movie handles really well, but just isn't really addressed that much, especially not from the right perspective.
There are more casting changes besides Daniel Simon, by the way. There's that new Colleen we mentioned in the last episode. There's also a non-change that we mentioned, which is Jake still here.
I was really confused about that.
Yeah, and I really expected a change. Disappointed there wasn't one. And without further ado, let's take a trip back to 1998, where they were taking a trip back to 1873.
So meta.
And just like last time around, we're going to just open in a field. We're just kind of outdoors somewhere. And brothers Brian and Matthew are out in a field looking for a fishing hole. And they're discussing Brian's upcoming 1873 science project for 1873 school.
What the fuck would a science project be?
Yeah, there's
at
no
that
way
time?
they had that then. There's no way.
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's like, okay, what's your project or your report on, Brian? I dug a hole in the dirt.
Yeah. Oh,
Amazing
exactly.
science. Like, what?
The teacher said to prove dirt was real, and I did.
So little
I
of
ate it and spat it at him.
so little of science was even acknowledged back then.
Yeah.
What would it even be? Like there was a debate 50 years after that point of whether or not we evolved from apes. Like there is no way they were like, well, let's make sure we learn some hard facts about the world, Brian or Matthew or whoever it was. You can't expect an 1800 science class to amount to anything at all.
Meanwhile, the next day, the Scholastic Book Fair shows up to the school at Colorado Springs in the 1870s.
Let me ask you this, okay? Which school platform taught kids better? This science fair class or that class that taught centaurs and people in that Hercules episode?
I'd imagine you'd learn some anatomy lessons in that class.
Oh, they had geography. That's what they were doing, I think. And we're like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, we mapped out the 1 mile that we know exists, and that's
This
it.
is the water fountain. It's the head of the map. It's the central focal point. In this field, Brian and Matt are derailed, though, because they find a shitload of big old feathers, and they're not sure what's going on. But
It's just a hawk, no big deal. Show
right,
moves on.
it's
no
got to
big
be
deal.
a hawk. And like we said before we started talking about the episode, this is up to audience interpretation. So right after they find these feathers, a grown adult man jumps off of a ledge and crushes himself on a bunch of rocks on the ground while wearing a suit. And he's wearing like fake feathers.
Like full bore wings type thing.
Yeah, and he doesn't know anybody was watching him, so he's also embarrassed. And this is yet another setup where Dr. Mike's going to have a new patient when her kids bring in the newest weirdo that they have found.
I'm not sure why Brian and Matthew didn't just flee in terror from the man instead of helping him.
Now, at this point, I'm still totally clueless why this episode's called Birdman.
Well, Michael Keaton hasn't shown up quite yet.
That's true. Wait, listeners, he'll be here by the end.
Also, don't forget that Jake Slicker is powered by the sun, and that's how he can fly and use his bird friend Avenger.
On cloudy days, the town has peace.
Also, this is a really funny idea that we've been stringing people along by promising like Michael Keaton content.
Yeah.
Somehow, like, stay tuned. We're going to interview him at the end of this.
Oh,
Like anyone
yeah.
would be like, Michael Keaton. Oh, man, I can't miss that.
Oh,
I've
man,
gotta-
the kids are popping
gotta
for
keep
Keaton
listening.
these days. Yeah.
Maybe he's on Cameo, huh?
I have to hear what he says about multiple.
He'd be expensive. I don't want to know his price.
I would like to talk to Michael Keaton, though.
Sure.
Seems like a cool
Oh, yeah.
He's
dude.
got some stories.
He's
Good
done
actor.
so many good things in his career that I've enjoyed it.
Multiplicity.
I was going to say, remember that movie where he's himself a bunch of times? And you just
Do you
said it.
guys remember that movie? I don't remember what it's called, where he's Batman.
Oh, Robin Hood. Shit. I was said Men of
Men
Tights,
of
the Mel
Tights.
Brooks one. I was Men of Tights. See? Done. Got it.
Got it
What
in
I meant to
one.
say. Yep.
Woo. intro music time, and that means that big ol' swelling song that you heard at the beginning of our episode, and more bonnets and axes.
It just makes you
And
sad
all of
right
that.
away.
And fuck it, here's a few more sounds you might have heard. Play that horse sound, Van. Who gives a shit? Hell yeah.
Let's do it again.
That's right. Okay, now I'm ready to go back to Dr. Mike's office and talk about this poor man who jumped of his own volition off of a ledge.
Also, that arrow sound is the sound of Horace falling from a height, and when he sticks in the ground, it goes...
It's the point of the top of his head that sticks into the ground. The man who has been brought to Dr. Mike's office at first is very reluctant to have his fake wings taken off. He has what I can most delicately describe as a really cool skullet.
He does.
And a deep desire in his loins to learn how to fly. He talks a lot about flying, you guys. And it's not like spread out or one of the things he talks about.
No, it is the thing he talks about.
This is like if you have a friend who recently became religious, but when I quit smoking, I talked about it a lot. It's that sort of thing. Like, it's a big deal, and it's been going on a long time.
And also, it's not I quit smoking, it's I am a bird.
Well, he found something that's better for his health.
I mean, arguably.
Yeah, exactly. We also learn at this point that this Birdman, has been living in the woods for years.
That was one of my favorite lines is, Martin, I haven't seen you before. Are you new to the area? Oh, I've quite been residing in the woods for a good decade or so.
That's a real conversation stopper right there. What have you been up to? Well, living in the woods.
Oh, of course, so you're a creep then. Sure. All right.
We also see what I believe to be some of the most, deft acting from Jane Seymour that I see in these two episodes, where she has to juggle being outwardly nice to the Birdman and her facial expressions being deeply skeptical.
And a bit terrified.
Yeah, and a little bit afraid. Who's not afraid at all is little cowboy boy Brian, who has never been more excited for anything.
What a bond they build. Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask this now because they mention later in the episode, I forget, maybe you'll come to it. They say that he fell and hurt himself. Did you look this up? This is the thing I didn't look up.
That Birdman did?
Brian.
That Brian, yes. So this comes up later, but apparently Brian at one point was doing something and fell from a high height. And I have it somewhere in my notes.
He hurt his head.
Yeah, he hurt his head, which makes Dr. Mike afraid for Brian to be involved in anything very high up.
Okay, fair
essentially.
enough.
And she should also be very afraid for him to be around this Birdman.
He's eaten children before.
Yeah, and not known it. I would assume he thought they were some sort of bird pellet.
No, yeah, he would never do anything malicious intentionally.
Yeah. So Brian loves Birdman. Dr. Mike is a little bit skeptical.
I also wish that was just like you describing yourself. And Brian loves Birdman.
I mean, a couple years ago, that was right.
Yeah, that movie was really good.
It was
Honestly,
great.
It was good.
We'll talk about it later, but
In the interview with Michael Keaton at the end of the show.
we'll talk about with Michael Keaton about that movie and about his performance in this episode that's totally real. Right around now is when Mike tells the Birdman, who reveals somewhere around here that his real name is Martin, his human name, should stay the night so that he can be monitored for concussion symptoms, and he reluctantly agrees. The town's new sheriff that we mentioned, Daniel Simon, walks in, and Mike goes ahead and makes the introductions so that Martin and the sheriff can meet one another.
Martin, this is Daniel Simon. He's our sheriff. Daniel, this is Martin.
I'm of the family Avis Hominis.
That's an unusual name. Where are you from?
London originally, then New York. But since confinement in one place does not agree with me, I've been obliged to be a rather migratory creature of recent years.
I think he could have just said, "Oh, I used to be a professor."
Yes. Everyone leaves you alone.
I decided to
Be a
head
bird.
west. Yeah, and you could Birdman in your free time without anyone judging you.
This is one of those things too. It's just like last week, or I guess a couple weeks ago, I could not keep a straight face when Van was just saying, "So anyway, Agent Cinnamon," and then when you're like, "So Birdman,"
So Brian and Birdman.
it's really hard for me to just listen to this like it's just a part of the plot, but it's really hard. It's really hard to hear it that way.
Up next is a Joan Jett commercial for Guitar Center.
Fits right in.
If you're me and you watched for free on Amazon Prime.
Which I did. I didn't see that one. But you know what? I don't think she gives a damn about her reputation.
No, she doesn't. That's why she's doing these guitars in her commercials.
And that's why she's wearing the bird outfit.
Yeah. Oh, man. So the conversation continues between Dr. Mike and the family, and this is when Matt and Brian decide we might as well tell her that Birdman jumped off the cliff on purpose. And Brian then, he becomes very curious because he realizes I've never seen a Birdman before, and I'm a cowboy boy. I mean, I'm very inquisitive, and he asks one of my favorite questions of the episode, Mom, what do you suppose Birdman eats? Which is just, hearing it was delightful.
Dr. Quinn, is it perchance possible that you have some millet seed I could nibble on for a few hours?
That's a very good impersonation of Birdman.
I could go for a cuddle bone to, wear down my beak. It gets a bit long at times.
What if the show Martin from the 90s was this?
He was the titular Martin.
Oh, it would have changed In Living Color a lot, too, to have Birdman as a cast member.
Is that Fireman Bill there? What are you up to?
James Carey in the corner. The next morning, the family wakes up and...
Oh, yeah, what's Birdman doing, huh?
Normal stuff. He said Birdman... Birdman is outside, perched atop a...
Whistling like a goddamn bird.
I mean, at this point, I've already had it with this guy. Like, that's enough.
Excuse me? I want more.
Yeah, so Birdman's outside, waking everybody up.
Our first actual choking.
Shit. Oh.
Man died on the podcast.
Man
recording.
has perished in a Birdman accident.
It was bound to happen.
It fucking hurts. Covered in vomit.
So...
Hold on, I'll be right back. I think we found the bumper.
Oh, man. That whole thing needs to be somewhere in the episode. Oh.
No, I mean, that was...
I'm sorry, that was disgusting.
It was worth it. That was really amazing. I could actually hear it come out, though, in the microphone.
Yeah, I could
hear
too.
it.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, my God.
I took a drink and you fucking said that. And I breathed
your fault.
through my nose.
You're the one who asked, what's Birdman doing? Could have just let it go.
We are back, and elephant, bird, in the room. If you couldn't tell, while talking about Birdman's morning ritual, we all kind of lost our shit a little bit.
One of us in particular.
One of us in particular.
Who shall remain nameless.
Yeah, Van could not handle it at all, and, well, I said a thing about Birdman at the wrong time. Water went in the wrong place, and Van has pulled a Boob Tube Boys first. And what is that, Van? What happened?
I have vomited. I have vomited, and it rests behind me in the trash can. It wasn't that much, but no, okay. Here's what happened. I said my bit. We're all laughing. Haha, funny. I reach over to grab a drink, and it's tea. It's Red Diamond Sweet Tea. Long-term listeners might know that's my
like
go-to
our first
beverage.
Bonus.
I took a heavy drink of it, and Brian said whatever it was Brian said, and it just hit me so hard in the funny bone, and I ended up snorting the beverage as well as like choking on it, and then I turn around as I'm coughing, spit it all over the wall behind me.
Just incredible.
Hacking, ended up retching into the trash can. A little bit came up, not a whole lot. I had to go get paper towels, blow my nose, the whole shindig, and I know it may not be the last time.
No, it was great, and it's indicative of this particular Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman episode.
I was going to say, at this point, you can tell how fully invested we are in this episode.
Yeah, this is definitely another. First episode is okay, and second episode is holy shit.
Yeah, what the fuck is happening?
We've had a lot of this, so we're going to do our best here to regroup for you guys and for our own sakes, and to do that, the first thing I need to say is the last thing I said, which is Birdman is perched atop a rail overlooking the town village. chirping and beeping and trying to wake everybody up.
That's what it was. He's waking everyone in the town up. That's what got me so good. He's
And
a fucking rooster up
I
there.
gotta say, the town's pretty polite for the time. They come out and they're just kind of, and they know they know Dr. Mike is like pals with the Birdman, so they all kind of go up to her and they're like, "What the fuck is this guy's problem?"
They're kind of like, well, look, if a lady can be a doctor, I suppose a man can be a bird. That's the next logical step. If a Native American is a person,
If we can build a doctor out of ladies, we can surely build a bird out of a man.
and apparently, according to one of the townsfolk here, he's been straight up doing this for like 2 hours.
Yeah. I think it's in this shot we first see Jake this episode too, and he's squinting and disapproving of the Birdman, of course. Dr. Mike is once again kind of a middle person here. Around now is when she finds a few absolutely just mortifying Birdman pictures the Birdman has drawn.
Well, he has that skill that all birds have, which is excellent charcoal drawing skills.
All Birdmen have thumbs. Yeah, and he does. He's a great charcoal artist. But again, there's a little bit of a Kid from the Babadook element to the drawings
yeah.
that made me like they're good drawings, but I would want to do something else except look at them before sleep.
Sure.
The Birdaduck.
Yeah, the bird of the. I think I'd watch that.
Sure. If it had Martin in it doing his weird fucking shit.
Martin has served as an inspiration for the youth of the town as young cowboy boy Brian decides to build a flying machine for his science project.
I know that if as a young boy I happened to stumble across a man pretending to be a bird, I would have been like, this guy's the real fucking deal. I'm into this.
If I'm building a flying machine, I need to go straight to the source.
This is for a science fair project.
Yeah, it is. And Birdman, of course, wants to help build this science project. Brian wants nothing more. Birdman's his fucking idol. Dr. Mike says no for now for a couple of reasons, any of which would be valid.
And then she completely caves immediately.
Yeah, and does she even cave? Because, like, she mentions that Brian fell out of that tree, which, by the way, is the thing that happened to him.
He fell out of a tree. That's
Yeah.
okay.
And then the other thing she mentions is Martin's a grown man who thinks he's a bird, which seems like another reason.
This deranged man who's been living in the woods for a while.
Yeah.
Hang out with my kid. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you complete access to my child.
Yeah, not to mention the diseases, probably. You know, bird flu. Yeah. But yeah, I guess they just decide they're going to do the project together anyway, right? Like, I don't know. They just kind of start doing it.
It's their thing.
Yeah. Back outdoors now. And Sheriff Daniel and Dr. Mike talk about how Birdman thinks he's a bird. They talk about what options there might be for this. Was there a past trauma? Is he nuts? Is he dangerous?
Is he a Birdman?
Is he a bird? Yeah, there's a lot of things here. And then Sheriff Daniel decides he'll relay what he thinks is a helpful story about a miner who was mauled by a bear, went insane, and then was hung by the other miners.
I was really confused about that. I didn't know what he was trying to accomplish.
I think the moral of the story is tell the Birdman to leave or we'll kill him.
You feel better there, Dr. Mike? Put you at ease at all?
Sheriff Daniel, I didn't know if he was a good guy or bad guy at this point in the episode because this is the first time we've seen him. And we see him speaking to like another overdressed figure.
A dapper fellow.
And who is it? Oh, it's Horace. He's talking to Horace about telegraphing New York City to find out more about Martin the Birdman.
Are you telling me this salsa was made in New York City?
No, I'm telling you that I'm a bird.
Those two as like a buddy cop adventure.
All right, I'm in on that.
I'd watch it.
Definitely.
Put that series to order.
And Martin could just perch on the shoulder of Horace because he's a good 12 feet tall. He is a tree.
Martin and Brian are talking about the flying machine after this outside for like 40 or 50 minutes. And most of it is Martin waxing poetic about birds being the perfect flying machine and how free they are. And again, just one thing comes across, and that's Martin's really into birds. I mean, he's a one-note guy, but the song he can play with that note.
Now, I could be wrong because I did kind of zone out a few times in this episode. But is that one of the times when they had the really emotional music going?
Oh, yes.
During that dialogue?
Oh, yeah. What?
The
so
soaring bird.
I noticed that the emotional music, some of the other scenes it appears in, or all of them, for the most part, it seriously is a character, and not in a good way, like atmosphere. It almost overpowers dialogue.
You're totally right. In many cases, we talked about this the last time, it doesn't fit. Like, it doesn't even have anything to do with
yeah,
the
it feels
theme
like
of the show.
a lower key moment that gets turned into some grandiose moment. Like, I think I'm gonna, Dr. Mike, do we have any butter? And it's like, doo-doo-doo-doo. Just immediately the music begins to soar.
There was just a while that I heard Birdman talking about birds and music playing over it, and I was just kind of like, well, I don't know what to think of this right now.
Yeah,
It was 40 minutes of the 45-minute runtime.
We get word back from New York. What do you think it says, guys? It says that, okay. Martin the Birdman used to be a professor, and then he was put into Bellevue
Escaped from
Insane
an
Asylum.
Insane asylum.
Yeah, he
How
got
many-
away
how
and
many-
lived in the woods.
How many times do you think he, in that period of time he was in the woods on the lamb,
Mhm.
that he tried to lay an egg and was
So-
disappointed with the results?
You could say if they recaptured him and brought him back, you certainly would consider him a flight risk.
Yeah, that was good.
Woo!
Yeah, that was all right.
It's all right. No, it didn't make me throw up,
That's
so
all-
it's
yeah,
not that good.
B plus.
Yes. Oh, and the other thing too is we find out he got out of an insane asylum. How is it that Dr. Mike finds this to be so hard to believe?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I thought that too. I was like, what have we seen so far in the episode that could possibly mean
She
that Martin
seems,
has a tenuous grasp on it?
I don't know. I thought she would be better at logic. I really did.
I did too. But, I mean, maybe Dr. Mike just needs something proven to her for her to believe that Martin may need some psychiatric help.
And he's well spoken. He's smart.
He's clearly an intelligent guy, but
She recognizes or thinks she recognizes the kindness in him for sure. That's the overarching theme of this, is like she really, even if she's like, what the fuck, she doesn't believe he's dangerous at all.
she sees the good in Martin, and I mean, maybe, and this word gets thrown around later too, but perhaps Martin is just a little bit eccentric.
Yeah.
Maybe, though, Dr. Mike just needs a little more proof. Cut to our next scene where Birdman's on top of a roof with a bulb, and he's saying, I'm testing the wind velocity.
And everyone is terrified. They're like, oh my God, please don't jump,
He's going to
Birdman.
fall off. And we've already seen the guy jump, so we know he's capable of it. Daniel, he's sheriff, and he also does a nice little facial expression during this scene that suggests, like, God damn it, I don't want to have to, like, do anything about this, but, I mean, something's going to happen with the Birdman.
I was wondering what would break first, Birdman.
Jake, he has other plans too. He wants the truth about the Birdman, and he goes to Horace, who we know has very loose and also large lips. But Horace ain't saying shit this time, except for he accidentally lets the word asylum slip, because old Horace is a big doof. We know that.
I've never found a person who better encapsulated the word goober.
Yes.
I think that is so adept at describing him as just goober.
Yes. It's honestly, Horace is like what would happen if Gomer Pyle were deemed a little too strong of a masculine presence
Yes, absolutely.
on television or something to that nature.
I also love back at the barn when Birdman was up on the roof or whatever. He comes down and they're like, you weren't going to jump, were you? And he goes, oh, definitely, of course not. One mustn't jump without their wings, implying if he had his wings on,
He totally would have, yeah.
Now, excuse me, Dr. Mike, your son and I have to get back to pecking at this seed barrel.
Oh, boy. So now we're going to move into the part of the episode where Dr. Mike sees the good in Martin and decides she needs to kind of assimilate him into society. Mike has him over that evening to have dinner with the family. So Martin does what any good dinner guest would do, and he perches in his chair like a bird and begins picking at his food with his face.
You said that so straight-faced, but I'm going to point out that's real.
Yeah, I'm not.
That happens.
Not a bit exaggerated.
Dr. Quinn is literally like, I just learned out that this man came from an insane asylum. Come have dinner with me and my several children.
Fortunately, this is Dr. Mike's first big test to socialize the Birdman. She tells, and she always has a way to do it, and this way is to convince Martin to switch over, flip the switch from his field manners to his table manners. Haha. He's able to reconcile it that way. just as this happened, in comes baby cowboy boy Brian, and he is fucking pumped because he's got a name for his project.
Hey, everybody, look. Oh, that's lovely, Brian. I'm calling it Moonrider 4.
Moonrider 4
It's the
fucking sucks, too.
Yeah, Moonrider 4 sucks. The name's great.
The name is amazing.
Whoever does PR for these guys, for Birdman and Cowboy Boy Brian, they're just incredible. But yeah, the thing doesn't really work at this point. Meanwhile, amongst all the excitement, and there's, I gotta say, Martin brings out a livelihood to the Dr. Quinn household.
He does.
Everybody feels a little more lively. They're up and about.
Wouldn't you, if a Birdman was staying with you?
I feel more like talking about the guy. So yes,
I almost died.
Yeah, you felt more dead briefly. There's a game of chess, kind of a rotating game of chess going on in the house. Also, we see Daniel get his ass handed to him by Dr. Mike. And Birdman casually says that he would like to play, and Dr. Mike lets him play, probably assuming this would take all of 3 seconds. Dr. Mike then invites Martin to go to lunch the next day at Grace's outdoor cafe that we saw the last episode. And honestly, Martin's very flattered, but Dr. Mike says there is kind of a catch. Let's get you gussied up a little bit. Let's make sure the townsfolk see you at your level best.
And if you're good, I'll let you catch a vole along the way in your razor-sharp talons.
And you can just swallow it whole and then get up on top of a building and shit on someone walking by.
Oh, someday I hope to have children of my own so that I might regurgitate that vole right back into their mouths.
Little did Dr. Mike know, Birdman rules at chess and beats her very, very quickly. Again, an affirmation that Birdman's a very smart guy, even if he's a little offbeat. And the soundtrack goes just hard here. It just swells up to the point where it's about to burst for some reason, as Martin tells Dr. Mike, after an invitation to sleep in the house, "No thanks, I'm going to go roost with my fellow avians." Ooh, the next day rolls around. Presumably, Martin is up and at 'em, and he said bye to his bird friends for the morning. Martin warns the group there are going to be strong winds. This all comes from his stand on a building with a bulb thing. And later he predicts that the winds will decrease. Both times, Martin totally was correct, wasn't he?
Like a bird, they can predict wind.
Yeah. Yes, that's why the Weather Channel's like 70% bird employee.
I always ask the birds when I want to know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, me too. I mean, also I ask them if I need chess moves. It's either one.
I'm glad he took her down a goddamn peg, though, by beating her so handily at chess, because she was so smug.
Yeah, Dr. Quinn always wants to rush to judgment and be angry.
That's what she's known for.
Before we can go to Grace's outdoor cafe, though, we do have to get Martin cleaned up. The first thing is obvious, is that Martin needs to take a bath. So the best way to do that bath would be in a room just loaded with people where everyone can see. Martin sits in a pool of his own disgusting filth. Probably years of filth from living outdoors. And what do you guys think Martin talks about while he's taking a bath? Any guesses? Birds. So right around this time, Jake comes in and makes a joke with the word loon in it.
Nailed it.
I fucking hate Jake, but okay. It's pretty good. You got the word loon.
Apropos to you, Jake Slicker.
Jake is called into duty again for his one true passion in life other than murder, and that is to cut hair. He goes ahead and cuts Martin's hair. He gives him a shave. Martin gets a new suit. We got a changed man here. This looks like probably, I'd assume, the professor of old.
Just like what Jonathan Van Ness does on Queer Eye.
Exactly.
Jake Slicker, same guy.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that Martin molted in this moment?
He did. He molted
shedding
all
the
that
old skin for
fuzz.
the new.
Why would you ever do business with Jake fucking Slicker?
Why does he live here? He should have been run out of town.
Yeah.
He's a lying murderer.
And presumably, we've got 4 more seasons between what we just saw, so a hell of a lot more awful
and he
stuff
has no one's
happening.
back. He'll sell someone out like this. He's loyal to no one. Jake Slicker is mean, you guys.
And then Dr. Quinn immediately just bails and leaves your eccentric Birdman with Jake Slicker.
Too much trust there.
That is a theme in this episode of her just kind of being like, I'm going to leave these characters together. It'll work out. It's fine. Birdman with my kids. Birdman with Jake.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's fine. The Birdman will handle it.
In both cases. He'll take care of my son.
Yeah, he'll beat him up. He'll peck him. There's a thing right around now where Sully gets word from Denver. Do you guys know what was going on with this?
No.
Okay, yes. So
with maps, there's maps.
there's a lot of stuff I didn't get at this point, honestly.
I watched this part twice. I don't.
So what it is the whole key overarching plot line for like several seasons.
That's why this is just touched upon so that we don't forget about it.
What it is Sully and Dr. Quinn are fighting for Native American rights. So they've traveled to Congress often. They've gone to D.C. They've gone around
that makes
to talk
sense.
to Congress members to,
because they do
try and get
mention
their plight
it needs to
heard.
be like whatever paperwork they have needs to get to a senator, so they need to be at a train on time.
Yeah, so he was gone for several episodes at different times for filming different things. So they always explain it as he's, trying to get their case across to politicians.
So that's actually one of the more explicable elements of the show.
Yes.
Okay.
There's no bird-related things with this,
Oh.
to my knowledge.
Well, enough of that shit then.
Actually, this is a good time to take a break, so let's do that. And then when we get back, we can find out just exactly what Martin gets to eat for dinner.
So Martin, Birdman, is outside and he runs into a well-dressed man who immediately seems to recognize Martin, which seems kind of weird.
Hey, you're that fucking bird guy, aren't you?
Yeah, hey, you're the guy that knows how to fucking fly and molt. So Martin's talking to this guy, and the guy reveals, I used to live in New York too. I know you. You're Dr. Martin whatever. I saw you at the Gould's wedding reception back in New York. There's rich people there. You're rich. And this is how we find out Martin actually comes from a very wealthy family. We already knew he was a professor. So things have gone different for Martin. I mean, things have gone not the direction I'm sure he would have thought that they would go. And right after this, we finally make it to Grace's Outdoor Cafe, which both the show and I have been promising would happen at some point or another. Okay. Everything's going great. Martin the Birdman he's being totally cordial. He's being nice. You got to imagine he's hungry. Food's not exactly everywhere in this point in time. Dr. Mike's having casual conversations. Assumingly, she doesn't have to feel the need to pay attention to Martin as much now. She thinks he's socializing well. The employee brings over dinner for Martin, and
What was it?
it's a bird. It's a bird that's been cooked and prepared.
How do you think Martin would handle seeing one of his brethren cooked in front of him?
Well, he tears ass out of there. He's clearly very upset. This is not at all what Martin wanted to see.
So I have to tell you something. When I was a child, it wasn't now. I had pet birds as a kid growing up. I had birds. I had parrots. I didn't know that. Probably you shouldn't give a parrot chicken, but I did. I gave our pet parrot, who was a giant cockatoo, gave her some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and she ate the fuck out of that shit.
Did you?
Wow.
She didn't care at all.
Huh.
She looked a little weird at first, like she was kind of like, and then,
Maybe,
and then
but
just
it's
tore
good
into
enough.
that.
I don't care.
This'll do, yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that's accurate. That Birdman was worried about that. He should have been fine with it.
There's a lot. Well, Birdman has a lot of trouble here, and I neglected to mention that after getting his hair cut, he tried to take his hair. And,
He did bend over, tried to grab it, and Jake
yeah.
Slicker was like, come on.
Jake said, "Get the fuck out of here! I'm a dick.
So he's not.
I
Really,
need this hair."
He's not really.
It's my hair now.
He's not really assimilating himself very well in this.
Not
situation.
anymore. He honestly has some form of a panic attack, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, the actor, showed like PTSD face.
Yeah.
And I thought he did a pretty good job
Yeah.
showing like abject horror seeing this bird.
Absolutely. There's honestly never been a more dedicated actor in the history of film, or television. Daniel tells Dr. Mike, that he's heard from Bellevue, the insane asylum, and they do want Martin back, and they're coming to get him, which honestly, at this point, I don't want that to happen to Martin, but there's nothing Martin's doing right now that would convince the town otherwise, especially when we finally find Martin, where he's aggressively run off to sit in a dark corner in his long johns holding a nest of eggs.
A whole fuckload of eggs. He saw the waitress who brought the chicken over crack an egg and put it in a frying pan. And again, the PTSD from it. So
Yeah, he stole all
I
the
do
eggs.
that every morning. He would hate me.
And Jake is pissed, of course, because this affected him, I guess, somehow. And he really wants Martin in jail.
Jake is just never on the right side of anything.
And Jake says the shittiest thing he's ever said here. He says Martin's as crazy as a bed bug.
Son of a bitch. What an
I forgot
insult.
about that line.
I loved it. I
just
don't know
slipped
why.
right-
I expected Jake to say some horrific
Something
thing.
awful, yeah.
Yeah.
He went with that
And then that's-
almost wholesome
Well, I just
thing.
watched him say racial stuff
Yeah.
like repeatedly.
I don't even know what that means, but yeah, he certainly is being Jake.
You've
Yeah.
certainly never seen a bed bug then. All they do is rant and rave about UFOs, tinfoil hats, the whole thing.
I was gonna say, I mean, mostly their actions
Oh.
are pretty logical
Yeah,
based
seriously,
on what
those-
they're here to do.
I read a stat that 80% of fucking bed bugs are QAnon. Everything seems really hopeless for Martin at this point. I mean, people are demanding he be put in jail. Dr. Mike tells Martin, look, your family's actually concerned, your human family. Martin says, but I like it here. I feel at home in Colorado Springs. You've given me a family that I need. Dr. Mike says, okay, I get it, and I want you to stay too. I think you fucking rule.
Inexplicably, I mean, we're having fun with this, but
Yeah.
why would Dr. Mike be so vehemently for him?
I think she sees him as maybe, again, and perhaps it's because nothing has ever made Brian happier. I'm
That's
not,
true.
I don't,
That's part of
I
it,
have
yeah.
no idea, but she is very and again, he's not without his charms, Birdman. We find out here that the Bellevue people will be there the next morning, and it's
They
really,
really
important.
want Birdman.
Yeah.
Like, they're really
He must
into
be really valuable. I guess he is wealthy. And Martin, obviously, he doesn't want anything to do with that. He knows he needs to be on his best behavior, but he also knows he needs to help Brian with his project the next day anyway, no matter what the cost. At this point, Dr. Mike and Brian talk about the crazy genius divide that Martin has, which they just spell it out. It's been basically spelled out all episode, but here they just say it. How could a guy be both good and bad? That's one of the things the show is always doing, and I mean, that's being human, guys.
It's just such low-level, entry-level
Yeah.
bullshit with that.
Exactly. We cut to the town assholes who we see all the time. They're having a stupid dinner and talking about how Martin's family's rich and maybe there's a reward. Because this is a bloodthirsty town. And how good Dr. Mike is as a person can be measured by the fact that she stays here to help them.
Yeah, certainly.
And that Birdman wants to stay makes me think he must be decent too. I'm not really sure. Stuff is looking up in the air as far as Martin's future. Brian's upset. The town assholes want Martin gone. They might want a reward. We find out somewhere in here, though, that Martin's family may not actually give a shit about him. And that becomes a prevalent reason we understand probably to be what happened to Martin, as he just never had love in his life like he needed. And that certainly wasn't the case after he was committed as
So
well.
by being a Birdman.
Yes.
These guys talk about the father is some land or oil tycoon or something or other, and that's why how they're so wealthy. And he's very conservative. I think what the implication is that Martin to a wealthy family is seen as a black eye.
Like a burden, yeah.
So they put him in a home
Yes.
where no
Get
one
him out
sees
of
him.
sight, and the family's perfect.
Yeah.
And they were probably proud of him when he was a professor. And yet he learned how to he's a Birdman, and they're not proud of him.
It's kind of like that Kennedy sister.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they lobotomized her
It is
and then just
fucked
stuffed her
up.
Horrible, horrible shit. And
Yeah.
real. It happened. It's amazing.
And not that long ago.
We're going to stick our sister in this stupid home. I'm the
My,
president now.
my brother BFK, Birdman F. Kennedy, is running for president in 2024.
I did not know that story, but it is startling how much lobotomies were just used as a solution.
Yeah,
to
they
him.
thought it was real. They're like,
To,
oh,
like-
fuck, let's just ruin your brain. I bet that'll fix your brain.
yeah, just to not have one anymore.
Yeah.
You're having mental trouble, so we're going to go in and take out brain, just a whole bunch of it, and see what goes down.
We don't know what any of it does, so we assume it's fine to do that.
That's how one flew after whatever it is, one flew
You'll get there.
away from the cuckoo's
One
nest.
flew on top of that cuckoo's nest.
One Birdman from the cuckoo's nest. I don't remember. But then, no, I saw that movie, and it's startling.
Yes.
Let's all three of us take a trip to Jake's barbershop
Okay.
slash dwelling.
Oh, boy.
Jake's sleeping in the night and he hears something and does what Jake would, of course, do and immediately grabs a gun.
He's a real true
Yep.
American there.
Out in the main barbershop area, we see Martin fucking around with a cloth and a razor, and he's cutting the cloth up.
I really did not get this at all in the moment. I was like, okay,
There
Birdman,
is
what's
zero
going
chance
on?
anyone ever could have. And we'll talk about that in about 5 minutes extensively. I would imagine. Jake walks in on this, cocks his gun, screams at Martin to stop, and then we cut away and hear a gunshot.
And based on the first
They want you
episode,
to.
I just assumed he was
They
shot.
want
Based
you
on
to think he killed him.
everything we know
Absolutely.
about Mike, I expected there to be a trial.
And he was just fine right away the next scene. I don't know why they
Not
did that.
Mike. I'm sorry. Dr. Mike is wonderful.
Jake
Jake.
Slicker. Jake Snapper.
Jake Snapper. Jake Shitter.
And I mean, of course, what was Birdman doing there? He was doing what any harmless, normal Birdman would do, gathering up his discarded hair.
Yeah, man. Everybody's got to do.
And that was a question that was asked a lot of times in this whole episode is what was Birdman doing there?
Yeah. Could be asked about the episode, just in general. So Mike runs over to Jake's. The town is up now after hearing the gunshot, essentially. There's only like 20 of them, whatever. Nobody lets Martin have a chance to explain that he was just in there cutting up cloth and grabbing his own hair. And they go ahead and put him in jail. It seems hopeless at this point.
Why won't people let me explain this? Fine, Birdman, tell us your side of the story. I was gathering my hair and various materials to make a nest.
Oh,
Like any bird would do. We're in jail now, or we're not, but Birdman
Shit.
is.
What did I do?
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
Birdman too much.
Dr.
Never.
Mike brings Martin a food plate in jail and also a sketch pad from Brian so he can draw some more nightmares. Martin maintains his innocence. He tells Dr. Mike why he went back to that barber shop and just knows that once Dr. Mike hears this, she will argue forever for his freedom.
You said you left something at the barber shop?
I was trying to retrieve my hair.
But why did you need it?
Well, so that I could build a nest. You
Idiot.
see, I felt if the doctor knew that I had a place to live, well, he would be more inclined to allow me to stay.
The place to live Martin would like to build is his own hair.
Poor Birdman though.
He's going to build some walls with his own nails.
Feels so bad for him. He just wanted to stay there. He just
No,
wanted
I do hate that he can't stay. I really do. Because he's a sweet guy,
he is.
Bird.
Yeah.
He's a sweet guy, Bird.
A look washes over Dr. Mike's face here. This is another one where she's like, oh God, this poor guy is fucked. She kind of fully understands that, you know, lovely guy, but like the times are not going to allow him a free life.
And then he was mad because she brought him, like, I don't know, bacon or something or other. It wasn't just a bowl of juicy grubs that he wants.
He wants some like worms and
Mhm.
flowers. I don't know what the fuck they do.
Flowers.
Yeah, sure. Flowers like a hamburger or something.
Perchance you could bring me a bowl of sugar water and I could devour some nectar.
I'll slowly lap at it with the edge of my tongue.
Look at me flitter about upside down.
Martin, by the way, we get the confirmation here. His real family just didn't give a shit about him, and he tells us that. And he really considers Dr. Mike and her family his new family here in Colorado.
Aw.
I know. And Daniel, the sheriff, the argument here is this simple. Is Martin eccentric or is Martin crazy? Sheriff Daniel says, look, having a wolf as a pet, that's eccentric. Thinking you're a bird, that's crazy. And I would like to argue that having a wolf as a pet is not a mark of sanity.
Certainly. Yeah, I think it's closer to crazy than it is sane.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, dangerous at the very least. We're back outside again, and little cowboy boy Brian is doing what he's been trying to do for this whole episode, other than be friends with Birdman, and that's get the what's this thing?
Moonrider 4?
Moonrider
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, the fourth edition.
For some
The
reason,
fourth
and this was
iteration
not
of
to be
Moonrider.
this was not to be funny at all. I put Flymaster 8 in this
That's
part
pretty
of my
good.
notes. Earlier, I had
that
it
was the
correct.
best in your head at the time. You were like, I think it's
I
something like
I
that.
thought that was correct in some sort of form.
Hey,
It also
no.
sounds like a guy on the Jersey Shore or something.
Yo, I'm Flymaster 8.
Hey, Paulie D, what you doing?
Are you looking for some extra cash? Yeah, I guess so. It's in my pants. Okay, Flymaster 8, get out of here. Brian, he grunts and chucks the Flymaster 8, hoping it will soar into the sky. It doesn't. It just goes straight into the ground and looks like it breaks.
It's not ready yet.
Like the piece of shit Moonrider 4 is.
It's just not ready.
Yeah,
Doctor-
I always knew Moonrider 4 wasn't going to make it.
No,
It would
5
need
or
more
6 might.
prototypes.
Fun fact, the Apollo program was almost called the Moonrider program.
Wow. But not the Flymaster.
No, sadly enough. That wasn't real at all.
No.
I didn't even kind of.
No, you didn't even have us for a second on that one.
I should know that by now.
On
but
that one. Sometimes you do. Sometimes
that's
you'll
true.
get in clean enough that you do fool us.
I'm pretty trusting. I'll believe most things. Didn't believe that.
Do you believe he was really a bird man?
No.
He sold me.
Yeah, I'm convinced.
I mean, you've thrown up for him just today.
I did, yes.
Doctor, but not into his mouth, which is
Just
what he would have
today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. If you really believed in him, you would have regurgitated it to one of us, I guess. I don't know. There's no one else here.
For some reason, Jake is an important guy in this town. And
He's the mayor.
He's the mayor somehow. And
that guy.
Dr. Mike knows he's an important guy to convince when it comes to Martin staying in the town. So she tries and she tells him, look, Martin used to be a college professor. Look, that's not the way to appeal to someone like Jake, who refers to being a college professor as having stupid college ideas.
He believes something. There's a line, something along the lines of believing in science, and his belief in science is that it's a bunch of stupid ideas.
And then he says humans will never fly, which we know today is true still. And then I have a note right after this that says, I hate Jake.
I have many notes like that in mind.
I have a lot of angry ones, and for some reason, this one where he just shits on everything. He can't, aside from all the murdering, he just can't, I mean, he can't even be polite.
Nope.
He wants so badly to clothesline from hell Birdman, and yet he won't do it.
If he was as big as the real Bradshaw.
I think, by the way, you could take Jake Slicker, pluck him right out of the show, 1876 or whatever, and plop him right in 2021. He'll fit right in.
Absolutely.
I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, he is a character you could use. Now, I don't think a show now would let him get away with murder in a literal sense. Just figured it.
Yeah, that's true.
Back at Grace's cafe, we see Brian and Dr. Mike talking about this flying science project again while she holds that big baby that we talked about earlier.
My note just says Dr. Quinn's baby is fucking enormous.
I wasn't sure who's the doctor and who's the baby here.
How did that baby come out of her? It tore her in half.
I know, the baby's already bigger than Brian, although I guess that's not her biological.
Yeah.
Brian has an idea, and that idea is to jailbreak Martin the Birdman.
Which, honestly, though, if you see inside the jail cell, it wouldn't be that hard.
No, not at all, and it isn't. And the whole concept here is that Martin will not have freedom in Colorado Springs. Not with Jake around, not with some of these people around, and he certainly will not have freedom at the asylum, and he survived on his own in the woods, so fuck, he can do it again. Whatever. And we've got Matt on the mission. Van talked about it earlier. Matt used to actually be the town constable or something, or sheriff. Matt has a meeting with Daniel about this predicament. Daniel kind of says, I'm just going to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, let you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I haven't moved anything in your office and the drawers are unlocked.
Well, the drawer that I was supposed to fix, I just never got around to fixing it.
Thus letting Matt know he can go jailbreak the Birdman.
And Matt all but did the nose tap thing.
Yeah.
Like he was really telegraphing it.
I really, really wish that he would have.
Yeah.
I think... So Matt sneaks in and begins his little project here. He begins breaking him out. Woohoo! Birdman's gonna be free. Just in time, too, because an evil, sideburned doctor from New York arrives off the train. To prove he's evil right away, he's like, put that Birdman in restraints. Effectively.
Oh, yeah, we didn't mention that earlier. When Dr. Quinn was checking Birdman, she saw his wrists, and his wrists were scarred.
Oh, yeah,
that's right.
Because of the bolts or the straining things
treatment
from the place. So, and she has a line at some point in the show of he lived years in the woods and bore no scars even anywhere near as bad as the ones from his wrists. Mm-hmm. So it's another point of look, he's going to suffer if he goes here.
And they did not assume that was stigmata. They assumed that it was in fact handcuff treatment or something of that ilk.
Sure.
The good news is, even though he has to go live in the woods, Martin the Birdman gets a proper goodbye with Dr. Mike and the family, and he gets a little bit of stuff to go with him. Dr. Mike gives him some food. Brian gives him the most important thing, his fake wings, so he's able to not fly again.
Presumably break a leg a day later
Yes.
as he jumps off another cliff.
And that's off. The Birdman is off. Martin has not left his last influence on the show, though, because when the Flyman... What the fuck?
Moonrider 4.
When the Moonrider 4 is used again by Brian, there's a little shred of a cut-up pillowcase, which turns out to be the cloth the Birdman was cutting back in Jake's barbershop. and it's just kind of on around Moonrider 4.
He ties it on like the tail.
Yeah, he just ties it on there.
He was stabilizing the lower end or something.
Yeah, I'm not a physicist. I don't know how that works.
Well,
or any of that,
Birdman is.
but
So.
clearly.
So then instead of just dumping straight into the ground, because there's a piece of pillowcase tied to the end of it loosely, the Moonrider 4 was able to make it to Mars.
It goes like 100 miles away.
It just soars and soars, as does the fucking soundtrack again.
Oh man, yeah, that ending part was just kind of hilarious. Like,
yeah,
just how-
it was really funny. This episode's hilarious.
And presumably then Brian has to go get the damn
They'll
thing.
never find it.
No.
It'll
It's
wind
in
up
the
in another
wilderness.
continent or something. God.
And my episode cut out, and I didn't bother rewinding to look at it, but it was saying something about the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a voice.
So in this episode, which
Mine just
I
stopped.
personally thought was about mental health, we get a
It
title.
seemed like it.
No, not even a little.
We get this title card thing that, like an after card that pops up telling us about what the Wright brothers were able to accomplish and that they were able to make humans fly. And this seemed funny and tonally so off.
It's very
That's why I just kind of laughed and let it stop. I was like, I'm not rewinding
I
that.
thought it was great. And real quick, that's the end of the episode. Real quick, my
Sure
thoughts
is.
on this episode. Some of it is similar to the last episode in that the show is trying to take on mental health to
Heavy
a certain
topics.
degree.
You
Heavy
can
topics.
see what it was going for
And
sure.
it does a better job because it's a topic where they can at least be like, look, you just sympathize with this guy, and if you don't, you're a dick. And most of the people are dicks. But they also, like, you know, it's the same thing. I have a modern 2020s complaint, which is, as a mentally ill person, I don't want people to
As someone who
necessarily
thinks you're a bird.
think I'm a bird. I am, but my name would indicate I'm just someone who admires Birdman, my name being Brian, like that little boy. And all little boys, apparently.
All little Brian's.
But yeah, the show is trying to do a thing here, but it does it very clumsily. And then the tacked on ending made me think maybe this was about flight. I'm not sure. Maybe
Yeah, I
I
don't
was
know
wrong
what
the whole
that was.
time. What did you guys think about this one?
Ooh, this was fascinating. I guess let me ask this question. In the echelon of stupid but amazing and funny and fun or whatever, where does this rank for
This
you
is
among
up
the shows
there.
we covered? Like, it's the principal, it's Hard Rider, you know, Walker, and then Renegade.
This is up there, and this is very sincere in a way
Yes.
that those shows are sincere, but not in the same way. This one means to not just entertain. I think this means to be a PSA a
Yeah.
little
Oh,
bit.
definitely.
Like, as did the last episode, which makes it funnier
And quite
in
a-
some ways.
Yes, in some ways.
Quite a few of the shows we've covered have done that.
Yeah.
Like Hercules did that with the
It must have been a real
with the
mark
centaurs
of that time.
and of course 21 Jump Street. That's what their entire show was,
Yeah.
which we didn't know until we covered it. But yeah, it's startlingly common that these shows use themselves in that way, where they were trying to, you know, here's the message of the week: don't hate other people for things.
But
And yeah, that's what this show definitely covered that in both these episodes.
yeah, it definitely is. And like, again, to recap here, like, we have all three dealt with our share of mental health stuff. And I certainly continue to. I think we all do. I don't mean to make light of any mental health issue when I say that I had a great time watching this fucking poor Birdman go through this episode trying to pretend to be a bird. The actor, and this is how much I love this. I looked up everything, and I didn't look up the actor who played the Birdman, who was so dedicated to his role that there wasn't a second where I thought, this is a man who thinks he's a man.
He does think he's a Birdman, not Martin whatever.
Yeah.
This actor thinks he's a Birdman.
Yeah. Oh, man. It was very fun to watch, very fun to talk about. What about the series overall? Who wants to comment on that?
Let me jump in first, because one thing I want to say is I have the pleasure of having seen more episodes
Right.
of Dr.
You are
Quinn.
the authority here.
So I have a few more to judge it off of. But I think if you're just going off to the last episode we covered and this episode, you see that Dr. Quinn, kind of isn't really like the core. She's
Yeah.
not the Chuck Norris.
And we
of
hit
the
on
show.
this, but I'm still surprised at that.
The other episodes I've watched, she's far more intricate and involved. So I think this was, again, there were, 170 episodes in 5
150,
seasons?
yeah.
So I think it's another product of we've got to fill time, so we can't have every episode revolve around her 99% of the time.
Yeah.
We have to do this.
Do some bottle episodes.
So I thought that was interesting in saying that it's called Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and it was so much about other characters.
It felt very much much like an ensemble show,
Mhm.
which I like. I mean, I
Sure.
think that's fine. But it is a weird title, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At least based on these.
Well, let me ask this then. Okay, so this show, what do you think it was trying to accomplish? Was it trying to push a more liberal narrative?
It seemed like it from what the few that I watch. It seemed like, yeah, they had that in mind. And they wanted to make her kind of a relatable person that people would listen to, even if they didn't want to necessarily when they went into it,
Mhm.
is what I said. And I know you think that's not the right way to approach it, but it seemed like that's what they were going for.
Yeah,
From the two that I saw. So
Yeah, they definitely were. And like I said before, like, it may not be my revisionist approach at the way to do it, because again, I have 30 years of hindsight, and I was a child then. I would have been very stupid. I would have made a far worse show. There might have still been a Birdman.
Don't sell yourself
Yeah, I
short.
know.
There might have been a Birdman, some professional wrestlers.
Yeah, a Snake Man for sure.
Oh, yeah,
A
definitely.
watch it.
Dinosaur Man. It'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think the show's intent was to do a couple of things to, first off, be a show about the Old West, of which there used to be several. It used to be a popular thing, and now it isn't. I think it's an interesting setting.
I do too. I like that aspect. I didn't get.
They didn't do much with
I
it.
wasn't sure if they did, because they definitely didn't lean on it at all in these. But that was like my first observation when I was watching both of these was like, oh, so a low budget Deadwood was like what I was thinking when I watched that.
Polite
because-
Deadwood.
Yeah, of course, because they couldn't do any of the stuff that Deadwood did.
What's his name? The main guy's there, and it's just saying "fuck" every
Yeah,
third
like,
word.
Jake, why don't you get the fuck out of my patent office?
And they actually did that on purpose, because I looked into that, and they didn't talk that way back then. You know, they said like
Yeah, that's
tarnation
right.
and stuff. They made it on
Which
purpose.
is almost better.
It's hilarious, but they knew that wouldn't play on HBO, so they on purpose just went
Yeah,
over
people would have laughed.
They went overboard and had everyone say cocksucker and fuck every other word, because they didn't say that back then. That's not how it was in the Wild West era. So they played on that really hard. And some of it was historically accurate, but the way they spoke was not. But yeah, it was Al. I forget what his name. Al
Swearingen.
Swearingen. Yeah, and he actually turns into a nice character after the first season. That shows.
Really?
It's only 3 seasons, and it gets real bad by the third, and they canceled it, or so. I don't know. HBO's always weird with their shows, but it starts great and then got weird. But I like Deadwood. I like Western settings, and I recognized, of course, that element of that, because you can see it. It's just the simple set piece. You're down a dirt road, and there's like a barbershop and a bar, a saloon.
And then
I
behind
should say.
that is an actor's trailer.
And that's like your typical Western. So when I saw that, it was like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing here. But they didn't really use it.
No, I think my final kind of like what I'll say about Dr. Quinn is that I think it's a well-meaning show intended to hit a very broad audience,
Sure.
probably received best by old people,
Well, and I did
Like
want
your
to point
grandma.
out,
like my grandma.
the target audience, as you're hinting at.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Katie about this show, she's like, when I was a kid, this was a thing because her parents were older and very much old conservative values, we'll say
Yeah.
that. And her father in particular, like loved this show, which is interesting to me because it does kind of play into that style of the Old West
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But it's preaching a little more progressive narrative.
Maybe it worked for him. Maybe that made him
It
a little
could
bit.
have.
Yeah. Maybe he took a little bit more of a liberal stance because of Dr. Quinn, medicine
Could
woman.
be. Now, and then I enjoyed this show. I will say I did not at the outset expect this show to be Walker, Texas Ranger, or Renegade.
No,
it is.
It isn't.
It isn't, but it is for me in how I review
Yeah.
and analyze it.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess what I would say is like this show is competent in ways that those shows aren't, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Is
Sir.
there-
Like there's a narrative
There's a
and stuff.
seriousness and,
Are
and a
there
dedication
are
to
there
it.
any episodes that focus on her medical prowess?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, because we didn't get to see that. I wanted to see her being like,
Doing the
scalpel.
lobotomies.
Give me my scalpel.
And she does that stuff.
Oh, cool. So she actually does surgery and stuff.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah. But all in all, yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty harmless show. It's just kind of especially the second one, I had a ball
Yeah,
watching
it was
it
so
and
much fun.
discussing
I'm sure
it.
you did.
Oh my God. The first one, watching it was a bit rough.
Well, yeah, sir. It was obviously a heavy topic.
And I was
it
mad at Jake the whole time.
And it was handled, I think, appropriately enough. However, that's still aggressive to watch.
Yeah, it's just an aggressive thing. And like, does Sully make mistakes? I don't know.
I don't think he ever makes mistakes. I think
Handsome guy, good
He is the
actor.
white savior. He is the one who's infallible. He's Chuck Norris of this show.
I just love that whole thing though, where he's clawing at that guy's throat and then being like, "Hi, I'm trying to make peace here," and jumps on him. It's so
Let's play
great.
ping pong. I want to kill you. Well, speak now or forever hold your truth. Does anyone have anything else to say about Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman?
Katie has seen every single episode of Dr. Quinn.
I'm so impressed by Katie's TV
Yeah,
prowess.
she gets after it.
She was-
watches her show.
genuinely excited to watch
Good.
these
I
episodes.
hope we did it justice. I do think.
We'll see.
I mean, I think we did. I don't know if we. I think we did Birdman justice. He's
Yeah.
We did make Van puke.
one of the
so
great characters in American television history.
I can't wait till you have to tell her that story. Are you gonna wait till she listens, or are you just gonna tell her right now?
What do you think?
You're gonna tell her now. You're gonna
Well,
be
no,
like,
I'm saying, what do you think is funnier? Or should I let it?
I
I
ride?
think
should
you
let her
should let
hear
her
it.
hear it,
Yeah.
and then afterwards you can give
And
her the
explain it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I won't
Yeah,
say.
as you know, as you're like drying off the vomit in your shirt that she sees
Yeah.
you wearing, like
Why
immediately.
does your office, the
Oh, I don't
studio,
know.
smell like
Find out
vomit?
later.
I don't think. Shut up, Brian Dwyer.
You'll have to listen in on the next Boob. It's like 2 weeks later too.
Yes,
from the recording.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
it's gonna
true.
be a while, but you'll learn someday.
Know your place as a woman.
Oh man.
Because, I just watched Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and
Yeah.
I'm a townsfolk.
Are you ready to tell me what I'm covering?
Also, she'd beat my ass if I said you're a woman. Know your place.
Well, she's probably a UFC fighter, just like in the story.
I had no idea.
The guy didn't know anything about his wife, and it happens.
As some of you know, all of you perhaps, we are still in the midst of doing a little show handoff, a little show hot potato, and we've got one more round to go, and that's
For now,
me.
I say we do this again sometime later.
Certainly.
Yeah,
not right away.
this will be a recurring thing we do sometime.
Yeah, I love it.
Before we do that though, I'll do a little bit of telling you where to find us.
Oh, okay.
And that's at boobtubeboys.com to read stuff we write.
That's where I go.
You can go on the Twitter at Boob Tube Boys or Instagram, also at Boob Tube Boys. You can also find us individually on Twitter. I am at Loud Guitar Brian. Van, you are.
At Puke Vanley. At Manly Vanley.
I'm
Spencer.
at the number 3 French _hen.
That's absolutely right.
It's a long name to look up, but it's worth it. And if
Totally
you're my 10th
worth it.
subscriber, I'll send you a gift basket.
and
It's a week later.
And one
from
day-
the last heard that.
one day there's going to be a YouTube channel for Boob Tube Boys.
I'm glad you said it this time.
Yeah, somebody had to tell us.
I'm tired of being such a liar every
That's,
week.
that's true. If you like what we do, if you had fun listening to this, we record bonus stuff every week. A lot of it's total nonsense, so if you like us, you'll like it.
And patreon.com/bootuing. That I'm going to be releasing this week's Patreon episode on the regular feed. So if you're listening to this show in a few days, you'll hear that episode for free because we want people to listen in and find out what we're offering on
Absolutely.
Patreon.
It's a Halloween special, guys. It's a Halloween special.
And it is special.
Oh, boy, and I have put this off long enough.
Let's do it.
It's a little time to tell Spencer the show that he has announced, but first I find it appropriate for all three of us to get in the mood. Oh, yeah. Loosening my tie,
I'm so in the mood right now.
unbuttoning a few buttons. Oh, yeah. Oh, shit, though. Things have taken a turn. Oh, my God. Smut, smut, and more smut.
Yes.
With sex and murder thrown in for good
You've already
measure.
made me happy. This is all I care about is smut and murder.
Best friends Rita and Chris are a pair of homicide detectives who battle crime in the sexy shadow of glitzy Palm Beach, Florida, in the USA NBC Universal Television show Silk Stocking.
Yes! It's
Wow.
finally showing up.
It's finally showing up,
okay.
and Spencer, who is not familiar
I don't
with
know
it,
anything about this.
he'll be taking the reins. So, a little background real quick. I was thinking about doing this anyway just because we've not done one of these, like, I don't know, like erotic murdery shows that
Sure.
were popular in the 90s. There were a lot of them, and this is one that I don't think is good. So, but I don't know. I have no idea. My
Probably
brother
not.
and I were having a conversation, and his wife Julie, and we were talking about it, and they let slip that apparently a thing they did was watch Silk Stockings together every week when it aired in high school,
Wow.
Whoa.
which is
So they-
fucking awesome.
You could say it made the relationship.
It
then.
did. They've been together for like 100 years,
Yeah.
and this is why. This is exactly why.
A
because they-
relationship built on the foundation of the USA show Silk Stockings.
They're going to be listening
Rock solid.
intently
I hope
as we
so.
cover this.
The couple that Silk Stockings together stay. The episodes we'll be covering, first off, Season 1, Episode 13, Shock Jock.
Oh, no.
When the live-in girlfriend of a popular and obnoxious radio personality is killed, Rita and Chris investigate the disturbed fan who admits to the murder.
Okay, sounds interesting. We've got a Howard Stern here.
We'll also be covering Season 2, Episode 17, Night Games.
How many seasons were there? Do you know?
A bunch, like 8.
Okay.
But the main cast, I guess, was just a few seasons, and they kind of kept it going.
Oh, sure.
That sort of thing. So I kept it in the first 2 seasons, the show's prime, so to speak. So Season 2, Episode 17, Night Games, a couple find themselves in big trouble when their bizarre sex games go awry and a man is killed.
I'm curious to see what bizarre sex games are that end up with a man dying.
It's
Yeah.
Puppet, probably.
No, at first I was like, it's not that big a deal. Bizarre sex games, and it's like someone died. Okay.
Okay, now I'm in. Now
this
I'm in.
is important.
Is there a Birdman? Then I'm
Get
definitely
right in. A sexy Birdman.
Yeah, so things are going to get hot and heavy around Bootu Inc. in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
See if that causes me to vomit again.
I'll try to make it happen. And then, without giving too much away, we've got a real special surprise lined up for after we do this. And like I said, I won't give it away, but it's going to be great. You guys
It's
should
really, really
be
fun.
looking forward to
It's
this.
really, really fun, you guys.
Get
And-
your base ready.
Yeah, get that base ready. Pour yourself a bowl of cereal and fucking get prepared. But for the next couple of weeks, turn the lights down low. Find someone you love.
And murder them.
No, probably like solve a murder with them. I don't know. I don't know what the show is really. We're about to find
We're
out.
going to find. I'll tell you all about it.
Any final parting thoughts, you fellas?
Would you like to puke again before we sign off, Van?
I don't ever want to puke again in my life. But that was rough.
It sounded rough.
I can't believe that just happened is
Did.
really what I would say about it. And if that doesn't tell you how amazing the Birdman episode of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman was, I don't know what will.
Incredible night of recording. So, for the 3 of us Boob Tube Boys, we are going to fly off into the distance.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.